Oleg slammed the refrigerator door with a force that rattled the contents within. A small ceramic magnet clinging to its surface tumbled to the linoleum with a dull thud. Lena stood across the small kitchen, her face pale, her hands clenched into tight fists. "Well, does that make you feel any better?" she breathed out, her chin lifting with a sudden, sharp defiance. "You just get to me, Lena." Oleg's voice cracked, though he was trying with all his might to keep it low, contained. "What kind of life is this? No joy, no prospects." "So it's all my fault again," Lena laughed, but the sound was brittle, laced with a deep, aching bitterness. "Of course nothing here ever measures up to your grand visions, does it, Oleg?" Oleg opened his mouth to retort, a sharp, cutting reply already forming on his tongue, but he stopped himself, a weary resignation washing over him. He simply waved a dismissive hand, reached for a bottle of mineral water, took a long, desperate swig straight from the neck, and then set it down heavily on the worn Formica tabletop. "Oleg, don't be silent." Lena's voice trembled, a fragile plea in the tense air. "Just once tell me plainly what's wrong. What is it, really?" He gave a harsh, mirthless smile. "What's there to say?" he snarled, the carefully constructed walls of his composure finally crumbling. "If only... But no, you wouldn't understand. I'm sick of all this, sick to death of it." For a few long, agonizing seconds, they stood locked in a silent battle of wills, their eyes meeting across the small divide of their failing marriage. Finally, Lena drew a deep, shuddering breath and turned away, disappearing into the small, tiled bathroom. Oleg sank onto the worn floral sofa in the living room, the springs groaning beneath his weight. From behind the closed door, the sound of running water filled the small apartment. Lena had probably turned on the tap, a futile attempt to drown out the sound of her tears. But a chilling thought set in Oleg's mind. He didn't even care anymore. Oleg and Lena had been married for 3 years. They lived in Lena's apartment, a place she had inherited from her parents. Her mother and father, upon retiring to the quiet of the countryside, had lovingly transferred the ownership to their only daughter. The apartment was spacious enough, but the furniture felt like relics from a bygone era, whispering tales of a life Oleg hadn't shared. Initially, he had been content. After all, it was an apartment practically in the city centre, a short commute to work in a respectable neighbourhood. But after 6 months, the mundane reality of their daily life began to grate on his nerves, like fingernails on a chalkboard. Lena found a deep comfort within the familiar walls of her childhood home, her family fortress, with its comforting brown wallpaper and her grandmother's sturdy, dark wood buffet. To Oleg, however, everything felt stagnant, suffocatingly ordinary. "Lena, please explain it to me," he would begin again and again, launching into the same tired argument. "Don't you ever want to change this awful yellow linoleum? Or maybe repaint the walls? Make everything modern, stylish?" "Oleg, we simply don't have the extra money for a major renovation right now," she would reply, her voice soft, laced with a gentle patience that only fueled his frustration. "Of course I'd love to change things, but let's just wait until the bonus, or until we've saved enough." "Wait, that's your whole life, Lena, isn't it? Waiting, enduring." He often found himself recalling the early days of their courtship, the memory now tinged with a bitter irony. Lena had been a shy student then, but her clear blue eyes and kind smile had captivated him instantly. He had told his friends with a youthful exuberance, "I see a flower bud in her. Just wait until it blooms. Everyone will be amazed." Now he felt a crushing disappointment. She hadn't bloomed. She had withered on the stem, he thought, watching Lena meticulously dust her mother's delicate crystal vases, add water into the cat's bowl or straighten the frames of childhood photos on the walls. But Lena didn't see herself as a faded shadow. She simply lived in a way that felt right to her, Small joys punctuated her days: a new linen napkin, a quiet evening curled up with a book, a steaming mug of mint tea, the warm glow of her bedside lamp. Oleg, however, perceived only stagnation in these simple pleasures, yet the thought of divorce never truly took root. The inconvenient reality of having to move out of the comfortable apartment and back in with his parents, with whom he constantly clashed, was a significant deterrent. Moreover, his mother, Tamara, had an infuriating habit of always taking Lena's side in any argument. "Son, you're not being fair," she would often say, her voice laced with a gentle reproach. "Lena is a wonderful girl, a smart girl. You live in her apartment. Be happy about it, Oleg." "Happy? What do you know, Mum?" he would grumble, his resentment simmering just below the surface. "You don't understand anything about life. You're stuck in your own stone age, just like Lena." Tamara would simply sigh, a deep, weary sound. Her son had drifted so far away. His father, Igor, knowing Oleg's stubborn nature, would only offer a weary piece of advice. "Let him sort himself out, Tamara. Don't interfere." Meanwhile, back in the familiar confines of Lena's apartment, Oleg's resentment festered with each passing day. The very walls seemed to mock his aspirations, silently reminding him of his perceived stagnation. "She's got me tied down here with this damn apartment," he'd mutter to himself during yet another simmering argument, his voice tight with suppressed fury. "I saw a beautiful flower in you once, Lena, and what am I left with now? A frozen bud." Lena, who had weathered his earlier outbursts with a quiet stoicism, finally broke. Tears welled up in her eyes, the first she'd shed in many long months, a testament to the slow erosion of her spirit. And it was on that sweltering summer day, the air thick with unspoken resentments, the very day that felt like the beginning of the end, that they first spoke the word divorce aloud. He stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the building across the courtyard, watching their neighbours unpacking boxes on their balcony. "Lena, I'm tired," he said quietly, his voice devoid of its usual sharp edge, replaced by a weary resignation. She continued to arrange a wilting bouquet of wildflowers on the table, her movements precise, almost clinical. "Tired of what, Oleg?" she asked, striving for a level tone. "Of this life, of our endless bickering. You've retreated into your pots and pans, your starched napkins. Do you honestly think I want to spend my years like this, aimlessly?" Without a word, she picked up a bag of rubbish and walked out into the hallway. Oleg heard the soft click of the closing door, a sound that echoed the finality he secretly craved, yet also strangely feared. He half expected her to return within minutes, perhaps to argue, perhaps even to offer a fragile olive branch. But Lena was gone for a full hour. When she finally reappeared, leaning against the doorframe, her composure seemed to have solidified, a newfound stillness about her. "You know," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "maybe you really would be better off alone. Move away." "Oh, so now you're getting to the point, are you?" Oleg retorted, his pride stung. "Well, I'm not the one who's leaving our home, Lena." A bitter smile touched the corners of her lips. "This isn't your home, Oleg. This is my parents' apartment. Let's be honest," she continued, her gaze direct, unwavering. "Our marriage isn't working. We need to admit that." Oleg found himself without a ready reply. A sudden wave of uncertainty washed over him. He retreated to the bedroom, sinking onto the edge of the bed and opening his laptop. But the thought gnawed at him. Where would I even go? His relationship with his parents was strained at best, a constant undercurrent of unspoken criticism and differing opinions. The argument hung heavy in the air, a suffocating presence that permeated the following days. They continued to bicker over trivialities, but at the heart of every conflict lay the same fundamental issue: his indifference towards the woman he now saw as a dull, unremarkable presence, mixed with his underlying fear of losing the comfortable security of her apartment. Finally, The simmering resentment boiled over. Oleg, in a fit of self-righteous anger, declared his decision. "I'm the one who's filing for divorce, Lena, not you," he muttered stubbornly to himself, a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control. "After all, I have parents. I have somewhere to go." He packed his belongings with a jerky, almost violent energy and left for his parents' apartment, though without any real enthusiasm for the prospect. Lena agreed to the divorce with a quiet acceptance. The paperwork was filed, the decree granted, and within a few short weeks they were officially no longer husband and wife. 3 years passed. Oleg remained living with his parents. Initially, he had envisioned a brief respite, a few months to regroup before returning to normal life, finding his own apartment, meeting a new woman who would finally share his grand ideals. But he found himself sinking deeper into a stagnant routine. His work offered little joy, barely providing enough for modest pleasures, and the elusive prospects he so desperately sought remained stubbornly out of reach. His parents' gentle nagging about their 30-something son still living under their roof only added to his growing unease. Then one cold autumn evening, Oleg was walking home after meeting a friend. He passed a small inviting cafe, its windows glowing warmly with soft lamplight. On a whim, he decided to step inside to escape the chill. But as he drew closer, he froze. Standing just inside the entrance was Lena. The same Lena he had left 3 years ago in her apartment, yet undeniably different. Her posture was confident, her hair neatly styled, her clothes elegant yet understated, and her gaze held a quiet, self-assuredness. In her hand she held the keys to a car, an expensive model. Well, well, Oleg thought, a strange mix of surprise and something akin to admiration stirring within him. Before he could fully process his thoughts, he found himself approaching her. "Lena?" he called out, his voice a little rough. She turned, her eyes taking a moment to register his presence. Then a genuine smile touched her lips, a smile that was nothing like the hesitant, shy one he remembered. This was a smile that radiated inner peace and self-possession. "Hello, Oleg," she said, her voice calm and warm. "It's good to see you. How are you?" "Fine, I'm fine," he replied, adjusting his scarf, feeling a sudden awkwardness wash over him. "I see things are good with you." "Yes," Lena answered without a hint of arrogance. "Let's just say I'm finally living the way I always dreamed of." Oleg swallowed hard, the lump in his throat mirroring the bitter pill of envy rising within him. "Well, good for you," he managed, the words feeling heavy and inadequate. "Working there, are you?" "Oh, no, I changed direction entirely," Lena replied, a soft smile gracing her lips. "I opened my own floral design studio. I was terrified at first, but—" her eyes sparkled with a newfound light. "I found someone who believed in me." "Who?" The question escaped his lips before he could stop it, a raw, possessive edge to his voice. Before Lena could answer, the cafe door opened and a tall man in a stylish overcoat stepped out. He walked directly to Lena, a warm smile on his face, and placed a possessive hand on her shoulder, drawing her close. "Ready to go, love?" he asked, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. Lena turned back to Oleg, her expression softening slightly. "Oleg, this is Vadim. Vadim, this is Oleg, my ex-husband." She smiled at Vadim, a genuine, radiant smile that spoke volumes of their connection. "Well, Oleg," she continued, her tone gentle but conclusive, "it was nice seeing you. I hope things go well for you too." Oleg simply nodded, a tempest raging within him. He knew it then with a stark clarity that pierced his denial. Lena was truly different. The grey mouse he had dismissed had blossomed into the vibrant flower he had once glimpsed, not with him, but with someone else. "Lena," he wanted to say something, anything, an apology, a plea, a desperate acknowledgement of his blindness, but the words remained trapped in his throat, choked by a sudden, overwhelming regret. "Glad for you, really," he mumbled, the lie tasting like ash on his tongue. "Thank you, Oleg," she replied, her voice quiet but firm. "Take care of yourself." Vadim smiled warmly at Oleg, offered a brief nod of acknowledgement, and then gently guided Lena through the glass door of the cafe, disappearing into the night. Oleg stood there for a long moment, the cold wind seeming to penetrate him to his very core. He closed his eyes briefly, the cruel irony of his own words echoing in his mind. Living with a frozen bud. Now the bud had unfrozen, had bloomed in glorious colour, and he was left standing outside, both literally and figuratively. Through the large cafe windows, he could see Lena and Vadim walking. Now that bud had unfrozen, had bloomed in glorious colour, and he was left standing outside, both literally and figuratively. Through the large cafe windows, he could see Lena and Vadim talking animatedly, their laughter occasionally reaching him in soft bursts. He watched their easy gestures, their genuine smiles, and a heavy emptiness settled in his chest. The evening, he knew, was already ruined, and not just the evening. A profound sense of loss washed over him. He could have been that source of confidence for Lena, the one to encourage her dreams, to support her aspirations. The thought was a sharp, agonizing twist of the knife. He turned away from the warmly lit cafe. The image of Lena and Vadim seared into his memory. He knew that if he could see himself now, he would recognize the green tinge of envy, the bitter taste of resentment, and the crushing weight of a chance irrevocably lost.